All right, folks, I got Carl Childers of RobbinHood Pest Solutions in Cleveland, Ohio, and the surrounding areas. And we're going to have a really cool conversation about a lot of the things that most of you guys are not even involved in, which is audited accounts and high-level biology facilities and different things in pest control that I think are super exciting. So, Carl, hey, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you. So we've been chatting a little bit back and forth. You've actually agreed with me on a lot of things, which is very rare that anybody agrees with me on anything. So it's kind of like, hey, this is a pretty cool guy. I might want to talk to him. So how you doing over there?
Oh, doing all right. It's been a record month and a busy month, to say the least.
Yeah. No. So you. Let's go. Let's talk a little bit about, because I know you have some extensive experience in pest control from field tech all the way to branch manager
Yes.
in the industry. So you've done this on a very serious level for a long time. You're not just a technician that decided to become an owner. You have a lot of experience. Let's talk about that. What made you, first of all, get into pest control? Because I'm always curious about how people actually got into pest control.
So I grew up in a very small town, to say the least. I think my graduating class was 100 people.
Wow.
Total. I decided that I needed to get away from that town, and literally January 1st of 2014, I picked up and moved 3.5 hours away to Cincinnati.
Got it. Okay.
With a former neighbor. And he had been working at Orkin in the commercial division for, I don't know, 10, 12 years.
Okay.
And got me hired as just a commercial division route tech. Fortunately, the Cincinnati commercial branch for Orkin at the time was the top in the company for revenue, just everything. They were just the pinnacle of the company. And so I got what I think is probably the best training in the industry for audited accounts, for commercial facilities, just about everything in that nature. And Orkin moved me around. I did some inner city Chicago, some Chicago suburbs, Cincinnati suburbs, Kentucky residential, and Cleveland. And then Cleveland was where they stuck me permanently after about a year and a half.
Got it. And so you were. This was right after high school?
I had just turned 21.
Okay, got it. Okay, so you started out really young. So that's about the age where most people start out, between that 19 to 25.
Yeah, I went to school for business management and project management. Never thought I'd ever get into pest control.
Nobody does. The bug life chooses you, I guess.
Yes.
Yeah. So you're in Cleveland, and what happens next there after you become a technician there?
I work around Cleveland in the areas. I build a route up multiple times, and I give away, half of my route every couple months to build it back up. And then I became the audit tech, where almost every one of my accounts was audited. There was only 2 in the branch that were audited that I didn't service.
Right.
Hospitals, pharmaceutical plants, everything was under my weekly vision is the word. Worked there for a while, worked there for another, 3-4 years almost, and left Orkin, went to a little local company, and then got hired and brought on as a manager at the Big T.
Got it. Something came in my, let me get rid of my inbox stuff, because there is notifications coming in and interrupting us. I should have closed that. And this is closed. I'm just clicking away at some stuff here.
You're fine.
Yeah. I'll just keep that open. Cool. Yeah, for some reason I heard something in my ear chiming. Keep forgetting I'm running two computers. All right. So we're back. So technical difficulties, folks. Sorry about that.
No worries.
So you go work for Big T and
worked for Big T for a little while.
Yep.
There was a slight disagreement
Mhm.
in some direction and some other things, and decided that I was going to start RobbinHood Pest Solutions.
Right. And at that point, were you a branch manager for them?
Yeah, essentially it was branch manager. Everybody in the branch didn't work there anymore except for me.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, it's I get it. It happens, and it is common with all these buyouts and things that are just one day you show up and you no longer have a job and everybody's gone, and it's just sad the way it happens in the industry. But it happens in a lot of others too.
Mine turned out being everybody was gone and then I got brought in.
Yeah, I actually experienced that myself as a manager. I was here in Miami, and then I went. I'm familiar. By the way, I'm familiar with your entire area because I lived.
You said Columbus, right?
Yeah, I used to live in Columbus, but I lived in Cincinnati, right across the bridge from Ohio.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, right there. And then I lived in Dayton area, all around Dayton area. Yeah, I know. And that's where I got stuck as a manager for a store. And I show up one morning, and I'm like, I called my regional manager up, and I said, "Hey, man, nobody showed up for work. You have the telephone numbers for the staff and everything." I says, "Oh, I forgot to tell you, we fired everybody." No staff in the store. I show up to open the store my first day, and I'm like, I got to run this store by myself. And luckily, I was able to hire 3 high school kids that were all out for the summer, and that was my staff for the summer. 3 high school kids that I had to train up to run this store. Yeah, and luckily enough, those were good kids, man. I can really say that they were like, I don't know, 16. They're in their senior year, so they were already 17, close. Some of them 18, and they worked all summer with me. They worked their butt off, and amazing kids. This is why I say, you can't, say, oh, kids won't work out. I've had plenty of experiences with them.
That was a couple of the best hires I had when I was at the Big T.
Yeah, and so that's why I'm always enthusiastic about doing that, because if a kid is 16 years old and he's looking for a job, there's something special about that kid. I'd hire a kid who's had 3 jobs, starting at 16 and he's 18 now, over a guy who hasn't had any work and he's 21 and going to college. That kid knows something about work ethic. So I'm always for it. But yeah, man. So now you're doing audit accounts. Let's get into that for a minute before we get into your business startup, because you bring a lot of unique things to the table. Talking about audited accounts. I mean, there's a lot of guys who are like, I talk to a lot of them who are in residential environments, and they're like, I'm at the top. I'm not going to get any more. I can't make any more money. What do I do? Where do I go from here? And I said, look at audited accounts. And I've actually had this conversation. Look into getting into commercial and getting into a higher end, because residential really is the lower end of the pest control. When we got, into the audit, when you get into audited accounts and you get into higher end commercial, that's a whole different field, a whole different game. So talk to us about what an audited account is, and we'll get into the AIB and all that kind of stuff and explain all that. What the heck that is?
So yeah, basically an audited account is when a company, usually a food production facility, that makes packaged food or packaging for food, pharmaceuticals, anything that would be regulated by the FDA or USDA. They will actually hire a third-party company to come in and check your work, to make sure that their facility is up to par. They cover a lot more than just pest control. They go through every aspect of the books, the manufacturing process, everything. But because it is food, or drugs or anything that you put into your body, Pest control is obviously a major part of those audits. Those facilities tend to require a lot more service equipment, a lot more service detail, and documentation is the biggest key for those accounts.
Right. What about the skill level of the tech? What are we looking at as far as compared to somebody that got off of a commercial residential route and all of a sudden is going or wanting to get into something like this? I mean, what do you have as far as the training and the experience and all that?
I'll be honest, it's not that much different.
Okay.
The only difference is rather than being accepting of, hey, you're going to see some dead bugs over the next couple days, or hey, you might see this for the next couple days. Their standard more so, especially in the higher up, like SQF, the tier three facilities, the expectation is zero.
Right.
Not in a couple days, it's zero. So you have to make sure you can implement those structural IPM. I am at a loss for words. The structural IPM changes that need to be done, the personnel changes that might need to be done, and make sure that you can apply chemical and you know exactly what you're applying and how you're doing it, because following those labels are looked at a lot more in depth.
Right. So a guy that just, because there's a lot of people here, and look, I know a lot of they're working for big companies now. They're calling me all the time. Says, Rick, I just got hired. Listen to your podcast. I saw you in the group. I just got hired this summer. This is my first year as a tech. I got to shadow a guy for a week. They put me in a truck and they put me on the road. That's the training that we're seeing right now. And I'm talking about large brands, that the amount of training that they're actually getting now compared to maybe when you started. I'm assuming you're probably maybe late 30s, early 40s, or maybe more.
I'm a lot younger than you think.
Okay. So
right around 30.
Okay. So around 30. So from 21 to 30, that's good 9 years, 10 years of working in the industry. You pick up a lot more stuff.
Absolutely.
Than the guy who's just got put on a route and said, you're going to spray baseboards, or he's working for a small local company where all they've taught him is to do is, here's how you mix it. You spray baseboards. Everybody's happy. This is how we do it here. I mean, there's a big difference between going from that as far as a skill level where construction, insect biology, and then not to mention the people skills that I guess you got to have to be able to manage this account.
Right. No, absolutely. I kind of take that for granted because I was trained in that environment.
Yeah.
Everybody that trained me had those big accounts.
Yeah.
I mean, every one of them was $2,000-$3,000 a week.
Right.
Which is kind of the account that all of us dream of.
Right.
Yeah, basically, if you're coming from a thrown in a truck standpoint, your biggest thing is going to be figuring out, talking to your contacts, finding out who the auditing agency is.
Right.
Is it SQF? Is it BRC? Is it AIB?
Right.
And then you want to be familiar with all of those. You can find those resources online. AIB has their standards posted. SQF has standards posted.
Right.
They're 50, 60 page documents, but you can find pest control in there.
Right.
As a general key, going into those accounts, I like to go through, like right now, the most strict auditing that you can have is really AIB standards.
Right.
Every account that's audited gets AIB standards in my book.
Got it. Says they're the strictest. If you go by them, pretty much you will please everybody else.
Yep. You're always covered. Yep. And then just following documentation is the biggest thing. If you did something, say you did it. If you didn't do it, say you didn't do it, and
Right.
ask forgiveness or ask forgiveness for that rather than doing something that might be frowned upon.
Right.
Because failing an audit during one of those is pretty much guaranteed loss of the account.
Got it. So yeah, so it's not like, hey, the customer keeps complaining that they got ants in the cafeteria or the employee lounge. This is pretty much a zero tolerance environment.
Yes.
And you have to be able to, as a person, as an individual, I guess, have the fortitude to be able to. In other words, you can't just be, careless. You have to really be, the inspection, the monitoring. You're pretty much more of an account manager at that point, really an account manager. That is your complete responsibility. That entire facility pretty much is on you. If you screw it up, that's going to cost you possibly your job too.
Yeah, most of the time, if it's an account like that and you fail an audit and it is obviously your fault. Certain bigger companies have, certain manager duties that have to be done that you don't get control of.
Right.
But as an audited account, as it goes, if you lose that, if you fail the audit, it's pretty much because you're not doing your job.
Right.
And again, it's one of those things where I just can't get into it enough about documentation of everything you do.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you have to be, you have to be the guy. Like, I get upset a lot of the times with my techs. Like, guys, you went to this property, and we're talking about residential. Okay. You went to this property and there is no notes on other than the product you use. You're telling me you observed nothing and we got called back. That's not going to be acceptable. So this is really a field when we're looking at this type of environment. It is for the top 1% of pest control people out there. It isn't for the 99 who just decides they're going to do their route, let their engine idle. The stuff that most technicians or most managers and owners put up with on residential, even in commercial routes that I see, is you have to bring your A game all the time.
Absolutely.
This is where the high level stuff is at. This is where, you're at the top of your game in this type of field. If you're really saying, I don't like what I'm doing, I'm not going to make, the money, then, and you're not aspiring to be the best in the industry, you're not getting here.
Absolutely. And another thing too is these accounts, I mean, again, it's the pinnacle of the industry.
Yeah.
And they know that too.
Right.
So these are not accounts that are, I don't want to spend money, or I don't want to do this. I don't want to take these precautions or these, proactive approaches to get rid of pests.
Right.
They're willing to do that. You just have to know, or to be willing to say that to them and say, hey, you guys need this exterior perimeter spray. It's a 1 million square foot building.
Right.
And it's this much money. You need to be able to say that, because if you don't, the next competitor will.
Right.
And I mean, I know we're both part of the pest cemetery.
Well, I was. They didn't seem to agree with me.
I was part of that. I was on that side too.
On that. So we've parted ways, and I'm pretty much everywhere else. I'm kind of like American Express,
Gotcha. Well, recently I've seen some multiple posts about, for example, rodent baits in bait stations. In an audited account, those are not allowed to be eaten on or nibbled on or old or moldy. They have to be brand new and pristine every single service or every single month, depending on your service. You have to be able to notate exactly how much of that bait was eaten. Where it was eaten is very important as well.
Right.
And I've seen some some other pest control providers that use old bait, they use moldy bait, they use half-eaten bait, and for me, from an audited account standpoint, because even as a startup company, I have audited accounts now already.
Okay. Right.
It's just not something I can do.
Right.
Even in a home.
So we're looking at, just to be clear. So what you're saying is that these are not accounts that you're there once a month. These are accounts that you're probably there weekly, or even more often.
Absolutely, you can be there. It's weekly. They could even be more often than weekly.
Right.
Oftentimes they are more often than weekly, because if they find a problem, you are getting a phone call and you are going to be there within 24 hours.
Right.
Usually same day, because those are accounts that you can't afford to have looking elsewhere.
Right. Yeah. I know a couple of guys here that basically they're assigned literally one account. That one account was the entire airport. And it was one account, and it was $250,000 a year for that account. And that was his only responsibility, is to be there every single day.
Yep.
On that account.
There is a hospital here in the Cleveland area that when they hire you and figure out the agreement and contract, they have a technician on site in a provided office for 8 hours a day, right. 5 days a week.
Yeah. So this is how serious this is taken. This is not, we're not exaggerating when we say this is serious, and most people will never cut it. This is serious. This is, when you're talking, about a food plant, but we're getting into, then a bio facility that we had the discussion about. Mm-hmm. When you're in and explain to people, because this is, most people, I find a lot of this curious. I guess I'm just a curious nature. When you're dealing with a level 1, 2, 3, 4 bio facility.
Bio facilities can be a little, not necessarily tricky. They're just a bit more strict.
Right.
Obviously the pest tolerance is 0.
Right.
For all bio facilities. It's just the levels that they have to go to mitigate that, because in level 1 facilities, level 2 facilities, you have thresholds. You're allowed to find X amount of beetles on a glue board in a trap. Mm-hmm. But when you start getting up into those higher tiers, the 3s, the 4s, pharmaceutical plants, I think, fall under the same standards. That's when they start making physical changes to the buildings to prevent pests.
Right.
Dock doors that lift, or the dock plates that lift up into the building and then have a sealed door around them. I mean, it's millions of dollars worth of physical changes to the buildings. When you get into the tier 3s and tier 4s, if you don't have an entomologist, a certified entomologist on your staff, you need to have one basically on retainer. If they find any single bug, that bug has to be sent to them for a full workup of what it is, what its habits are, what its species is, why it's in their facility. Wow. Everything about it.
Yeah. So when we're thinking about places that they could be biolabs from pharmaceutical. This could also be weapons grade.
Yep. I've never done any military like that yet.
Because I mean, I'm pretty much you're going to get escorted, and you have to have federal clearance, and you're not going to be walking around this facility with a B&G and just woohoo.
Yeah. Honestly, most of the audited plants never see a B&G.
Right.
It is, and this is why I agree so much with you with the baiting methods that you use.
Right.
Is because those IGRs, those are food grade.
Yeah.
They're allowed to be used in food facilities. And it is sprays, pyrethrins, foggings even. It's kind of the last ditch effort before they find somebody else to do the account.
Right. Yeah. No, this is the question that I asked myself one day. I literally asked myself this question. I was, because I didn't have the luxury that you had to be brought up in a company where this was actually taught to you because this needed to be taught to you and you had to learn it and you had to perform and there was no excuses. So you can't, well, I tried, the bifin outside and that didn't work. So, I've tried everything I can. That's not going to cut it. I asked myself one day, I woke up and I said, when I wanted to do GHB, because my background originally was in lawn and ornamental. So I have done a lot of organic stuff and stuff with plants, but I said, how would I solve a problem if somebody called me and said, here's a hospital surgical room that has an ant problem? How would you solve it? And I asked myself that in my head, and then I had to go out and do the research of how the heck is it done? And I basically had to read all the studies, entomological literature, all the information. I'm self-taught in this. I didn't go to, I took one IPM course from FMC back in 2007 when I was introduced to IPM. It was an introduction much to IPM as much it was to a crack and crevice course on how to perform with the System 3 and all that. And that was my introduction. But my number one question that I irritate people with, and I'm getting ready to do a class tomorrow on this. I'm going to go teach. And I don't have an entomology degree. I'm not a BCE. I don't have an ACE. I'm pretty much just a guy who's decided I'm going to read all this stuff that nobody wants to read, understand it, go out into the field and test it and see if it works and see how do I improve on it. And I've created my protocols over the last 9 years. So it can be done. You just got to care enough to want to do it and ask why. And I always say, I like, why? Why is this happening? Why is this happening? Why can't this be done? Why can this be done? Just why? And I irritate people when I'm asking always the question of why. And my thing was, that question was, how would I do a high-level facility? How would I do an AIB facility? How would I do an organic facility? And I read the protocols. Yep. And then I said, spraying is not even allowed in these places. So right. if it can be done in those facilities where you're competing with food and you're competing with other things, even if it's not sealed to the point that you would like it, you could still implement all of these processes. And that's that's all I did. I had enough to go test and prove. So I'm proving everyone that tells me wrong, but then I'll talk to somebody like you, and I'll talk to a couple of guys like you and a couple of entomologists that are actually doing this stuff. Like, Austin Frischman, every time I pick his brain on, he's done this stuff. So I'm looking at all this and people are like, no, you have to spray. You have to do this. I says, I haven't sprayed the inside of a home in over 2,000 roach services with anything other than bait and IGR. And I don't even spray the IGR. I use the pucks.
Yep. I think those are better anyway.
Yeah. Explain to me why you think they're better from a more scientific perspective.
I don't know if I have that, but
I know you do. You got it in you.
Basically, the point source are it's more of a pheromone. It covers a 75 cubic foot around it.
Yep.
Each one of those pucks do.
Yep.
The Gentrol sprays, like the foams, if I'm not mistaken, that doesn't produce a pheromone. The roaches actually have to walk over that to be affected by it. Now, granted, they do transfer that after they walk over it, but that would mean you have to make sure that spray is somewhere where every roach is going to come in contact with it.
Exactly. Yeah, that's been my challenge to when I do that. It says, am I going to get every crack and crevice? Exactly. And in a residential kitchen, even in a commercial kitchen, you're really not. So that's why I like the volatility and I depend on the volatility. I just get fascinated by modes of action. I'm talking about modes of action to some people, and they're looking at me like the deer in the headlights.
Absolutely, it's very important.
And I understand that the volatility of the transfer, of it, where they've tested it, and that's why I choose that, because I don't have to guess. And when you have 10, 15 routes on the road, do you really want 10 or 15 people guessing?
Exactly. They need
because now your multiplication of error is just exponentially increases. And this is why I'm about strict protocol. No, I'll have the argument, and talk to me about this, where I'll go into talk to a technician. Says, no, but I do it this way, and so does it that way, and he does it that way. So basically, you got 3-4 people in your company all doing it different ways. How do you know that you have a predictable, reliable product? Would you accept that in an AIB facility that one guy does it one way and another guy does it the other?
Yes and no.
Okay.
It kind of works two ways.
Okay.
The reason for that is I'm nitpicking more so just from an AIB standpoint.
Right.
It's where that technician puts baits. It's what bait that technician decides to use.
Right.
Which a lot of that comes down to what that facility approves.
Right.
That was something we didn't touch on because each of those facilities all have a different approval process and approval list.
Right.
Even green products or non-toxic baits like Detex block that has no poison or nothing in it whatsoever still has to be approved.
Right.
Anything you bring into those facilities has to be approved. And that's where the difference is. Like technicians, for the most part, I think can have different methodology on where they use things. Mm-hmm. And results are ultimately what matters. Mm-hmm. But when you're looking at this technician likes sprays for roaches and this technician likes baits for roaches, that's when you actually have a solid line in the sand difference.
Right.
Because those baits are significantly less invasive. Right. They're significantly less dangerous. Right. And you achieve the same amount of control or better than sprays.
Right.
So one of those technicians is not doing the job properly, you'd say.
Yeah. I have it where I've proven time after time, because I did it both ways. I originally was taught when I started baiting. This was, I don't know, maybe 9 years ago. When I started doing commercial accounts and started baiting, after I ditched the crack and crevice method, I would bait, and the manufacturer says you want to put a pea-sized drop, a 1/4 inch, every 2 feet. I said, okay, I did that. Then I still found roaches in other areas when I was doing every 2 feet. So I started doing research, and I said, why don't I just do a 1/16 of a bit, and I do it every 1 foot. And then I started doing that, started getting better results.
Yep.
Then I started saying, well, why don't I use a grid method and do it every 1 foot in a cube? So I'll take, 1 foot to the back, 1 foot to the front. Started using less bait. And in the areas where I obviously found nesting sites, which you get these gross kitchens, you're not going to find that in an AIB facility or anything like that. But
I have. I've walked. You have really? I have walked into them actually. It usually becomes an account that you take over from.
Yeah. Somebody failed. Tech. Somebody failed misery because they didn't do their job. Yeah. Right. So I'm looking at this and I said, okay, I'll do the grid method, and I tried it, and guess what? We were getting 98 on and infested kitchens, 95. 98%. When we come back, the person says, I haven't seen a roach, maybe 1 or 2 walking around, that we know we're going to start seeing nymphs. And then I started implementing that. Well, I'll train people. And I said, this is the way you do it now. Inevitably, customers calling after 2 weeks saying, well, I still see a lot of them. I have pictures of the original back and forth. I'll go out, pull out my flashlight, look at all the bait placements. Sure enough, he started skipping and doing every 2 to 3 feet. Because he didn't feel they were that full to make that decision. And this is where I'll have the argument. Every single time that I get those callbacks, I'll go with the tech and say, why did you do this? And it's usually based on a feeling. I just felt that it didn't need it. Well, what gave you the authority to change the protocol when I said do it every 1 foot on every kitchen, no matter what? And that's where I have the discussion where the difference between me and you, technician, is that I actually tested this for the last 9 years, over 2,000 jobs. How much testing have you actually done to prove me wrong?
Right. And that's where actually working into a completely another subject that we can touch on later. That's where the difference in a technician and a route manager is.
Yeah.
That route manager is the guy that has the knowledge or has the testing to make those decisions.
Right.
Rather than the technician that needs to follow the protocol, because the protocol is there from a route manager.
Yeah.
Or from the boss that was a route manager.
Right.
Because you wouldn't be in a position where you are if you weren't.
Right. And a lot of the arguments that I have with people that will disagree with me is, oh, I did the bait thing. The bait thing doesn't work. I said, did you also spray pyrethroids? Well, yeah, because you got to spray low and bait high. I said, that's a 20-year-old. We were having that discussion when I first came into the industry. We're no longer having that discussion in seminars. I don't think so. And I totally ditched the liquid and I got better results. So I've proven that you don't need anything more than the liquid. I mean, more than the bait most of the time, and the IGR. And we incorporate the dust bait for areas for voids that we can't reach. So that's my methodology: is dust bait, gel bait, IGR to control German roaches. We go back. We've got 90, 95, 98% control where the person says, I don't see except these little tiny new ones. And they just started hatching.
Yep.
And that's what we're dealing with. That's why we go back at 14 days or 30 days based on the pest biology, which is the other thing that is just killing me in this industry. And how much little actual pest biology people are actually taught at any level that I've seen. I see guys doing commercial restaurants and like, dude, do you understand the insect biology of the German roach? And he doesn't understand it. I mean, I'm just flabbergasted by this. This is why you see me doing this podcast, because those people that are listening to me who are calling me and saying, Frank, I'm a first-year tech, they haven't taught me any of the things you're talking about.
It is a big problem.
If you notice, most of the conversations in the group is, what chemical are you using?
Yep.
To kill this? And no, everybody's just repeating, throwing out the chemical.
I am also guilty of that.
Yeah. And then I always ask the question, well, what is it that you're treating? And where is it that you're treating it? And then I'll put, well, you can solve that problem with just bait by doing it this way. And 30 people will jump on me and says, no, you still have to spray. You can't do it. It can't be done. Absolutely can't be done.
It's just not, it's not true. There's too many large facilities that prove that wrong every day. The only spot where I kind of veer off and fork in the road is when you have a facility or you have a restaurant where they need immediate,
correct,
overnight knockdown, overnight stoppage of a problem.
Right.
And that's when the foggings and that's when spraying is pretty important. But if it's general treatment, if it's general service, if they don't want harsh sprays, if it's a green environment for whatever reason, you can absolutely get 100% control with baiting and IGR. Every time.
Yeah, and look, and I've even done it. Now it always comes down to, and I always have to be fair and equitable with people. It comes down to, what did you charge for that job, and how much time can you really devote to it? Because I've done restaurants where they were closed down. Department of Health came in, put the yellow sticker on the door and says, you're closed. And you're not going to open for a week because they got so much cleaning. They wanted painting. They wanted repairs and sealing done. They weren't just going to open up the next day.
Right.
But I've gone in there where we had thousands and thousands of roaches. All the seams on every refrigeration unit had hundreds of roaches in them, nymphs in those seals. And we've gone in. I did spend 6 to 8 hours in there.
I've done them. I know.
6 to 8 hours at night. I've gone in and I said, okay, I'm going to go in around 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon. They're closed, so I can go in any time and spend the 6-8 hours. And then, but we've done it with vacuum, with air, with crack and crevice, with bait, zero spray, baseboard spraying. Spent the 6 hours, flushed them all out, got rid of them. Come back next morning and say, let's start vacuuming, cleaning all these guys, because that inspector can come in at any minute, and actually open them up the next day without having to do the pyrethrum fogging. And then, because you can't do pyrethrum fogging and then do baiting.
Right. You bait next day or a couple days later every time, depending on what you use. If you use like Shockwave,
Yeah.
there's a little bit of a residual depending on what you're using. If you're using Shockwave in the aerosol, Shockwave 1,
yeah,
there is a residual repellent in that product. If you use Shockwave as the liquid fogger,
right,
it's just IGR as a residual.
But you're going to get some repellency in because of what, a distillate or something that's in there?
I consider I kind of go against this a little bit. I've noticed that bifenthrin in general, because bifenthrin is one of the products in Shockwave 1.
Got it.
Has a tendency to be a repellent for German roaches, regardless of how it's mixed.
Right.
Like Transport Micron, Transport GHP,
right.
Towelstar, Bifen. It always seems to have a little bit of a repellent effect.
Right. So this is why I've avoided it. And I said, let me go with either a non-repellent product or air and flushing. We've done it. We take air compressors and we flush out everything with air and vacuum, and we blow everything out of the motors and everything out of there at high pressure. And they come flying out of there like at 100 miles an hour. It looks amazing. If you enjoy that kind of work, to do it that way. I mean, but we've done it. We've been able to open people up that were closed with thousands of roaches, and get it done by the next day. Come in the next morning, finish off the crack and crevice. But it's tedious labor. So when I'm charging you at 125, 135 an hour to get that done, and you give me the time to do it, I can get it done for you. I just hate it when the technician is told, you got to go clean this out. They give them an hour and a half to do a clean out.
Right.
And because they only charge $200, and they're like, you have to basically do all that crazy stuff. But it's where, it always comes down to the money and the time. That's where I always,
absolutely.
That's where I really always have to make that. I feel sorry for the tech that say, man, they're only giving me 45 minutes to do initials. I said, dude, I give my technician an hour to an hour and a half, whatever time he needs based on the size of the property, because we sell it based on that. And he doesn't have to call me and explain why he took an extra 30 minutes. It's about having that, I guess. And I guess that's the difference between being like you are now that you're on your own. Is it, by the way, just you, or did you have a partner too?
I did start with a partner, but I don't have a partner anymore.
Got it.
Okay. It's just me. Okay. I am actually getting real close to the level where I need to hire somebody.
Yeah.
Just because of the types of facilities that I have and the area that I have them in.
Right. So let's talk about that, because you bring something to the table, like I said, that's different than most people that are looking to hire. Because looking to hire, they're usually looking to hire for the first time, and they don't have that experience in hire. So, and that's the key, I think, to getting, is making that right hire. So, what are you going to look for now when you're starting to look for a person to start with you? Are you looking for zero experience, or are you going to hire somebody with experience?
Honestly, it doesn't make too much of a difference to me.
Okay.
The thing that I'm looking for is the willingness to do the job.
Okay.
But now, granted, there is a different expectation if I hire somebody with experience.
Right.
I want to know what you did when you were a technician elsewhere.
Right.
And not only do I want to know what you did, I want to know where. Right. And it's not because I want to go take the account. It's not because I want to go after somebody. I want to know what you've serviced.
Right.
Have you serviced a hospital? Have you serviced a hotel? Have you serviced John Smith down the street? Have you serviced that Section 8 housing development? Because that will tell you everything you need to know.
Got it.
About a technician. If they managed to get control of, the HUD housing downtown that they were a part of, if they were part of that team that got control of it, chances are that guy knows how to kill roaches anywhere.
Right.
But he might be weak elsewhere. And that's where the training comes in.
Right.
The biggest thing you run into, especially with audited accounts and bigger accounts, is technicians don't know wildlife. They know you can know how to kill bugs, roaches, mice, all of it. Give them a bird and see what they do.
Right.
Like,
and that's one of the reasons that I've had such a great time with Steven, because he brings another element. For those of you who don't know who I'm talking about, Steven Van Tassel, our wildlife consultant, to where he brings in that element of wildlife, which I'm really weak on. I really don't know anything about wildlife other than rats, which is not considered wildlife.
right.
So when we do have a bird problem, it's been a very simple fix. There's a bird on top of a windowsill. Yeah, put spikes on it. That's been my extent of my expertise with wildlife.
Right.
If a bird gets into a Walmart store or inside a facility like that, what the heck do I do?
Exactly.
I have no freaking clue, to be honest.
Right. Or you have a food grade warehouse that has birds flying around.
Yeah.
I mean, it's one of those where you have to drop everything, and you could be there for 12 hours trying to catch birds.
Yeah. No. And what's I mean, we're talking about food grade. We're talking about poop falling all over, a bottling plant.
It doesn't even matter if it's a bottling plant. It could be anything. I actually had this problem in a freezer. This was a deep freezer on a food facility. I mean, and when I say freezer, this was 6 stories high.
Yeah.
And you could drive tow motors through it.
Yeah. No, I've been in one of those. I freaked out the first time I saw it. I was in a facility, and it was literally the size of a football field in there.
Yep.
It was huge. I was like, this is a freezer. I thought it was like, a little tiny walk-in freezer.
Yeah, and it's -2.
Yeah. And I walked in there and I'm like, oh my goodness, what the heck is this? It was amazing.
This facility, they had a bird, because of the way their layout was, fly right through a dock door and then right into the freezer. And believe it or not, in -2 degrees, a bird can live for 2 weeks.
Oh my goodness.
And this bird was in there for 2 weeks. I did everything I could possibly think of doing to catch this thing. Just short of taking in a BB gun.
Which was my next thought. I would have just shot it with a pellet gun.
Yeah, this state not allowed. Certain states, certain facilities, it's allowed. The reason you can't do that in a food facility is a BB is a metal foreign object, and you can't find it after you shoot it in a football-sized, or a football field-sized facility. But with that, just to give some insight on how strict it is, every package and every pallet in that freezer, when it came down, had to be inspected. If it had a bird dropping on it, these are packaged, it's packaged boxes and wrapped. If it had a bird dropping on it, the whole pallet was gone.
Oh my goodness.
It was lost. The whole thing was lost.
So you're looking at major losses for these guys every time something happens, and
Yes, and they make a thing called a mist net, which is basically a very fine net that you have 2 poles on each side of it, and you walk a warehouse to catch birds. It's got little pockets in it. They fly into it. They fall into it. You wrap them up, let them go outside.
Wow.
Well, you have to identify them first. But yeah. And that was, we spent the better part of 2 weeks every single day trying to catch these birds, but they were living so far up that there was no way to really get them. And they had enough water from some of the condensation to survive for the 2 weeks.
That is just mind-blowing to me. Give me a quick second here. I've got a tech and a client that just texted me. I'll make this call in a few minutes, and I'll have to give it back to you. Let me just give my tech a really quick call.
Nope, that's fine. That's priority, and it needs to be.
Yeah, he just called me. Give me a quick second.
Oye, brother.
Dímelo.
Mira, acabo de salir de casa de la señora.
Ajá.
Es como tú dices, tiene varias aberturas ahí.
Ajá.
Y eso no se ha solucionado.
Claro.
Ya se lo dije, que es verdad que ya está medio loquita, pero no es tanto el problema de la higiene, me parece.
Uh-huh.
No, el problema que tiene es los huecos, que tiene un baño que tiene 2 huecos grandes.
Uh-huh.
En la cocina igual tiene 2 huecos. Yo le traté de sellar ahí más o menos uno de los huecos que tiene en la cocina y ahí en el gabinete, ahí en el desagüe.
Okay.
Le sellé ahí.
Okay.
Ahí el problema que tiene son los huecos, y la otra vez parece que ahí sí se le fue también y no le puso nada en los monitores, no le puso ni ties ni le puso nada.
Y los monitores no cogieron nada.
Tenían muy poca.
Okay.
Al nivel de infestación que hay ahí, porque sí hay mucha infestación.
Uh-huh.
Ahí había bien poca.
Y la pregunta es, ¿cuántas viste que estaban vivas?
Como 5 o 6 ahí normal, como si nada, ahí en la pared, detrás de unos cuadros que tiene en la cocina, había.
Okay, sí, esa es otra cosa que no tiene el detalle para poder inspeccionar donde que no solamente en las áreas que te dije, tienes que buscar detrás de todo eso porque se puede haber movido. ¿No viste nada como si tenía el comedor o algo para el área del comedor, si había nada de eso?
Sí, yo me fijé ahí. Ella tiene una mesa ahí en la cocina.
Uh-huh.
Y ahí debajo de la cocina, debajo de la mesa, así en el filo, así había
Uh-huh.
también. Y en el comedor, así en la sala, también tenía otra mesa y le puse también así por debajo de la mesa, en el filo. Traté de no poner mucho fuera de la cocina para que, ¿me entiendes?, se concentrara.
Sí, no, lo único que tiene que ver de 4 a 5 pies. Ya.
En algunos puntos le dejé,
Okay.
porque había alguna por ahí.
Está
El
bien.
problema fuerte está en la cocina ahí, con los huecos esos que hay. Pero bueno, traté de ponerle todo el gel, le puse las trampas de la cocina y del refri igual. El refri igual, la trampa que tenía no tenía nada y no tenía casi ni cucarachas. Para el nivel de infestación que hay, la trampa no tenía nada.
Ok,
Tiene foto a los huecos, se lo voy a poner ahí.
Ok.
Y bueno,
en
los gabinetes, como así en los gabinetes, no vi mucho gel del viejo. ¿Sabes que siempre se ve el gel? No se ve el gel.
Sí, es el detalle, man, de todo eso, que si no se hace así, no hay manera de eliminarlo. Ok, está bien. Déjame, ya la otra señora, la segunda, ya ella está ahí esperando por ti, la que era primera en Fort Lauderdale, ya ella está lista para ti. Ya, ve para allá. Después dale, para allá. So, yeah, Tech went out to do a job where we've gone out a couple times, but the person wouldn't follow our follow-up protocol. And we called and called and called. They waited 4 months after the initial. We had to start all over again, went back over there. There's holes that big on the wall in the bathroom. It's in an apartment unit, and there's a hygiene issue, and there's also some type of a bit of a psychological problem there. Her son is trying to deal with all that. Called me and, be patient with her. So we have to be part therapist and part, consultant in this. So I told the guy, go back in, let's follow it up. The last tech that went out that I sent missed a couple of areas, didn't look at the picture frames in the kitchen and saw that they had roaches. And these are the things that I talk about. It's like, dude, you just can't, if you spot a roach, my policy is, look, if you spot a roach in a certain area, look 5 feet beyond that.
Absolutely.
And you look 5 feet beyond that, and you inspect everything 5 feet around that area. And if you don't find anything, you still might bait because you still might have something, but you got to look at everywhere. And so the holes after a year, the tile loose. I can see roaches on the edge of that from the shower. The holes still haven't been fixed. I still see the old roach tablets on the floor. So this didn't happen overnight. This has been going on for a year and a half now. And we're trying to get her control, and the cooperation isn't there from the tenant to do it. And on top of that, she gets upset because she's emotionally upset about everything right now. So, my guy has to take the blunt of whatever it is that she's not dealing with in her life. And it's all our fault that we haven't solved the problem yet.
It is it's a fine line to walk there.
Yeah. So we have to just, hey, do the best you can, do it. And then we'll have to follow it up again in 30 days and see how we can do this, or 15 days trying to deal with her. He's like, okay, so here we are. So that's the challenges, man, of the reality of what we do. So let's talk about your business. I mean, let's talk about your startup. So you decided, how long ago did you start up, by the way?
Technically it was born and started 1 year ago this month.
Oh, sweet. So happy anniversary.
Just about the idea and everything was put into motion 1 year ago today, actually.
Gotcha. Okay. Gotcha. Okay. And when did you actually start going out and getting accounts?
Technically, because of the way paperwork took around here and insurance, it was October 1st. Okay.
So from October till now, and you're at that point, wow, that you already need to hire.
Yeah, I jumped up pretty significantly, really quickly. I have a pretty good track record, and a pretty good. It's one of those things where everybody in the business industry knows me around here.
Yeah.
So as soon as word came out that Carl's got a pest control service,
right,
I started getting phone calls.
Got it. That's always sweet, man. I tell you what, if you're a guy, and I always tell people, it doesn't matter who you work for, guys. Even if they're treating you badly, if you are great at what you do, people will find you. I used to get more job offers from clients visiting the stores that I used to work at, because they were there before and they were there after how I was managing it.
Oh, I've done the same thing. Actually, that was one of my biggest accounts.
Yeah. So that's how I usually got the business. I mean, I used to manage a little in Columbus, Ohio. Mm-hmm. It was a little Mexican restaurant and store, and they were bleeding money like crazy. They had no idea what they gotten themselves into. And they were friends of mine at our church. And I said, okay, I just was in between jobs. I had quit my last job. And I said, sure, I'll go manage the restaurant for you. It must have been 30 days before they stopped bleeding money. And the next door guy who owned a cigar shop, he says, in about 3 months, he says, dude, what is it that you're doing? I said, I've never seen so much traffic. I've been here in this shopping center for like 10 years. What is it you're doing? I can't tell you. I just fixed stuff that was broken, and I got it running. And, and I didn't fire anybody. That was the beauty. I didn't have to fire anybody. Most people go in and fire the staffer. I didn't fire anybody.
It's not necessary.
So if you're great at what you do, I mean, I had Allstate insurance after me to build a store in Columbus. Because the thing is, I spoke Spanish and English. And that was a major market, Columbus. There was 215,000 Hispanics in Columbus at that time.
Yeah, absolutely.
They were walking into that store, eating there, the restaurant and all that. And they were calling me, going, hey, would you like to, we'll start you up. We'll get you a store. So if you're good at what you do and you focus on being the best and forget about the fact that you may work for a crappy company or a crappy boss, be the best, learn the most that you can, get exposed to all this stuff. When you decide maybe another company will pick you up because they've got a a recruiter manager, because managers are really good at being out and going around stores, and this guy would be great for our business. Let's bring him in.
I think we should write a book on the difference and how to become a route manager versus a technician.
Yep. And I've been discussing that lately with people. I've had the discussion with my technicians all the time about them becoming the route manager for their route, and then being a route manager for other people. If you can't manage yourself, you're never going to manage other people.
Absolutely. And it comes down to one of those things where I don't like my personal philosophy.
Right.
And something that I do when I train anybody is it's not Orkin pest control. It's not natural pest control. Right. It's Carl's pest control.
Right.
It's Frank's pest control.
Right.
Your route is your company.
Yeah.
Personally, when I was running a route, even now, even though I own the company, but when I was running a route for another company, I didn't like people in my accounts. I didn't like other technicians in my services. I didn't like managers in my accounts. And it wasn't because I wasn't doing a job. It wasn't because I wasn't doing a good job or skipping things or, cutting corners.
Right.
It was that customer is mine.
Right. You took extreme ownership.
Yeah. Stacy at the get-go is my customer.
Right.
There is no one else from the company that she needs to ever see or deal with. I will handle 100% of her complaints or questions or anything. And that's why all of my customers all had my personal cell phone number. I had a work cell phone. I had a personal cell phone. All of the accounts that were serious customers that, could have problems and call, they had both numbers as well as the corporate number.
Right.
And that is actually a big reason how my business got such a skyrocket.
Right. And that's one of the things that I used to, no matter what job I was at, I owned it. Mm-hmm. And I worked to 60, 70, 80 hours. It didn't matter. It's an issue of that pride in workmanship, that pride and it's getting tougher. I mean, I got to admit that I'm hiring, I'm looking for people all the time. I'm interviewing. I mean, I must have read, I'm not kidding, down here in the last 2 years, gone through maybe 2,000 resumes, looking at the applicants, and there's a big delusion in the world right now of that you can really be good at something in 6 months. That you're going to be excellent at it. You're going to get and not take ownership of it, not take responsibility, not give it all you got, but just show up and collect the paycheck. And I think I see so many, like, people would get hard. Their hearts tend to get hardened. And when I'm talking to them in the groups about how that's why they stayed solo, because they didn't want to deal with this. Mm-hmm. And I think, to me, it's really a mindset. It has nothing to do with the reality. It's all in the psychology. You're seeing the same applicants that I'm seeing. I'm not getting any better applicants. To me, the psychology of that this is the game, that you have to find that diamond in the rough, that once you decide to hire, you're no longer about tactics and pest control. It's all your time is HR, pretty much. For me, the majority of my time and issues that I have is HR, that I constantly have to be, hey guys, you missed this. Look at this picture. Because I make my guys take pictures of everything in the field, upload them into the software so that I can see it, so that I can say, did you notice that over there? Did you notice this? So it's always about now me managing I'm still wearing 5 hats. I'm still doing the marketing is coming off of me this year because I've already hired an agency that took me 2 years to really find a good agency that I know could handle this. And so I'm dumping that marketing stuff on them now. Making sure you're still there. Yeah, no, I just heard something on my end. And doing the marketing, and then the HR and I'm doing sales. I'm no longer doing the tech work at all, except for I'll jump in the truck once a week and I'll do spot checks on all the accounts.
Absolutely.
And most of mine, because they're ornamentals, they're plants, a lot of it, still 50% of our business, still that. But then I will also go and do the follow-ups and see how they did the initial. I'll videotape it. I said, look, this is what you missed. All this stuff you missed. Take it back. Use it as training. So it becomes that. And a lot of the guys, because you were a field service manager or a route manager, and then you were a branch manager, you understand the business of the business. A lot of the guys don't understand the business of the business. They understand the technical part, the pest control, and maybe a little bit of the sales part, but they're really not doing sales. They're more of a soft sell where they're offering upgrades. They're not really going out and hustling, getting new accounts.
Right.
And I think that is a reality that most people aren't prepared, especially when they get to this hiring part. I said, if you've done it 100 times, you have no clue what it's really like because you read a book,
Right.
and that's where I what is it? Let me ask you a question. Besides what they've done, besides what the work they've done, what do you look for in the person that you're hiring? A person as a person. What is it that you're looking for in their aptitude or their attitude or their psyche? How do you evaluate that, and how are you doing that to hire people? Because
I think in a good way to look at it, and I mean, we've all made bad hires. It happens. Yep. The first interview, and the first contact are two of the most telling factors, and it has actually ended interviews for me.
Okay.
Basically, if you put your resume out there and somebody calls you, do you pick up the phone? Is the first one. Not that you're just busy with something. Like if it goes to voicemail, I understand. You leave a message. How punctual are you at getting back to it?
Right.
Are you just ignoring it because it's a foreign number? Because we have a lot of foreign numbers. But if you put your number out there, you have to answer your phone.
Right.
And then the second part is your interview. When is it scheduled? If it's scheduled at 1:00 on Friday, what time do you get there? And it goes back to the whole, reading a book, or just are you there 5 minutes early? Are you there right on time? Are they a little bit late? That matters to me. Because if you tell me you're going to be somewhere at 1:00 and you're not there by at least 12:50, you're late. Right. And there's a punctuality issue there. And that's one of the biggest factors I look at in an interview. Right. And then willingness to learn. During an interview, I kind of have an somewhat unconventional way of interviewing people. My first questions really comes down to, are you scared of anything? Are you scared of heights? Are you scared of bugs? Are you scared of crawl spaces? Are you scared of rats, mice, raccoons, birds, anything? Mm-hmm. And then I give that person a rundown of what the worst day I could have is as a field tech. You have a schedule of 6. You have 6 accounts that all take an hour and a half a piece. And then you got a call from another one that isn't on the schedule, but you have to do it that day.
Right.
And then everything's taking longer than it should. And you just I give the worst possible breakdown of a day. And I basically, I almost sell it that's every day.
Right.
You have to expect that every day in this industry.
Right.
Does it always happen? No.
Right.
Does it happen often? Chances are yes. I've learned that no matter what schedule you make, no matter how perfect it is, it's going to change in about 6 minutes.
Yeah. No, we just had that this morning. We had already 2 scheduled appointments, and I have a policy that if you've got a scheduled appointment, especially because we do a lot of non-scheduled appointments. We just show up, we do the job, and we're an exterior only company, so we're doing mosquito control and lawns and all this.
Right.
But we've had 4 initial starts today, which is big for us to have 4 initials in one day. I usually don't book them, but they were in a hurry, so I got them. Sometimes I'll start the day and the technician is like, "Oh, I only have 6 stops today." I said, "You know better than to come in here and thinking you're going to be done by 3, because we'll get one. I'll sell something in the middle of noon, and I'll put it on the route today to get it done. I will do. We'll get a call and a customer complaint. We'll get it done. We probably maybe handle 1 complaint if we're lucky, about 3 complaints a week on something. Most of the time, it's like something that is not even on our, like somebody called yesterday and said, I got fire ants and my kids are getting bit. Well, fire ants, you bought an interior pest control service. You didn't buy an exterior for fire ants. We get there, turns out it's fire ants. We treat it for free. It wasn't a real callback, but we had to take care of the customer.
Exactly. You're building that customer relationship, which is
so to me, it's like, it's no big deal. I'm not going to make a big, I just let them know, hey, listen, if you want us, we can do a regular application. It's this much more. And that's fine. We take care of it. Most of the complaints we got are from things like, hey, I've got rats in my attic again. I said, well, did you ever fix the rat problem? The entry point. Well, actually the guy's coming tomorrow to fix the fascia board. Well, that was 10 months ago. She's got rats in the attic again, right when he's getting ready to do the fascia board repair today and take down the gondola and all this, and sends me the picture of how she foamed it in, and the rats made a hole that big and 8 through 8 foot of foam, because that was going to solve it. So this is the kind of calls we get that they're not really complaints. It's like, but we still got to handle them. We still can't say, I'm not going to go out because, you didn't listen to me 9 months ago. Now is when you're listening to me. Now you've got another rat in your attic. So now we got to coordinate between the tech and the guy coming in to do the repair. And we're going to try to get that rat out of there with a repellent and see if we can get it out by tomorrow. And because I don't want that guy stuck in there and then have nowhere to go and fall down a wall or something and then have to tear that open. So we're trying to do the trapping and all this. And this is the day. This is what, and the tech is like, the first time he saw this, it's like, it looks like organized chaos. In his mind, he's going to come in and he's going to go in and he's going to do what's on the schedule. And, because I ask people in customer service, I get a ton of people in customer service apply, but they've worked at Walmart where you show up, what's wrong with the product? It doesn't work. You want your money back? Yeah. Anybody can do that. That's not customer service. That's company policy. They just take it back with a receipt, put it in a box and give them their money back. And they think they're doing this great customer service job in their mind because they've done refunds for the last 6 months. And the idea of customer service here, the level that you need of a person of how to manage people. It's really, I tell them it's more about people management than it is product and pest management.
Absolutely.
It's total people management. Time management, how you learn. I tell people we need some balance. I said, bro, look, the reality is this isn't balance. It's a balancing act. Most days I wake up and it's like crossing Niagara Falls on a tightrope while I have a baby in my hands being set on fire. That's
a fair point.
That's how I feel most days. I said, if you can't handle that, most of the time you can't, as an owner, people, until you step into my shoes, I have a guy says, you need to get started early. Okay. I'm going to start you early and see what happens. And he ends up in traffic stuck for, an hour, but I'll let him do it because he challenged me on this. Is why do you have me start at 9 instead of 7? I can get so much done. I said, okay, I'm going to get you started at 7 in Miami and watch how you get stuck for an hour and 27 minutes in traffic just to go 3 miles.
Right.
That's how chaotic it is. So these things that I've, picked up and all that I discuss with people, I try to, how do I find that guy? And you know what, I don't know if you do this or if you've done it in your companies, and I'll bring up this point. And I've been talking to a couple of other guys that do it, but I do personality profile testing for every hire. And
I think we talked about that a little bit.
yeah, I do those, but I'll tell you my biggest challenge that I have, and then tell me how you're solving it. My biggest challenge that I'm finding is that overwhelmingly the people that are applying are coming up with extreme low self-esteem. And I'm looking at so many people and then I look at their Facebook account and the depressing stuff that they post. They're both the amount of depression and low self-esteem of people that are applying that I've actually hired. I've had to fire all of them for one reason or another. And I'm finding that to be a huge challenge because everybody that we're testing is coming back with extreme low self-esteem.
I kind of don't like those. I ignore those because the bigger companies all have those in place.
Yep.
And the reason for that is that's where I test.
Yep.
I guess I'm considered low self-esteem on that section.
Really?
Yeah. On every test I take, if I answer it 100% honestly,
right.
That's where I fall. Okay. But as soon as you put me in front of a customer,
right,
it's for a lack of better, it's a fantasy world.
Right.
I can talk, I can be with everybody,
right.
But I am just as happy sitting alone at home on the couch.
Right. Right.
Without ever, like I could go days without talking to anybody at all.
Right.
But as soon as I have an objective, it's a different world.
Right. Do you find that you there's a difference between solitude and loneliness, where some people are lonely, but you enjoy the solitude?
Yeah, but you can't get those out of those personality tests. You have to find that with an interview.
Yeah, and that's what I usually do. I usually will test with, but then you're looking at I try to get the big picture, and then I usually learn from those. I use I guess I just the way I'm wired, that I'll go back, pull it out, and say, did I see this in that person? And chances are, yeah, I just chose to ignore it because I needed a warm body. And then I look at the other underlying issues that they come up, because these things are gotten not as much as the other ones, like the Myers-Briggs, which I've never been really a fan on. And the DISC, okay, I'm looking at more intensive because I test for personality profile, but then I do aptitude testing, mathematical testing, reading testing.
Now that stuff is very important.
Mechanical aptitude test. So I get a full picture of the person that and this is when I get down to like, hey, this is the best applicant I got. Let me put them through this. And then of course we do 50 state background testing, and we do federal FBI background testing on that. We do pedophile lists. So we spend the money on trying to get the best people that we can.
I did learn very quickly that in any case, the whole idea of hiring a warm body is the worst case.
Yeah.
Don't do it. Go like reschedule customers and explain to customers before you hire a warm body.
Yeah.
Because it will tank it'll tank your company's credibility.
Yeah, totally. No, that's been, I did that at the beginning, and I learned after like the, 8th or 9th guy that, you can't do that. You had to, and here's the thing, I'll talk to people about all this. And says, my God, but what does all that cost? And I says, I probably spend $2,000 a year or more on software and all this to acquire the talent and test and, put them through the process and the interviewing, and reading the resumes. But on software alone, I probably spend $2,000. He says, oh my God, but I can't spend that. I says, you better learn how to hire, because the reality is the tools are there for you, but it's not going to be cheap, and nobody wants to spend that money. And like I said, if you've done it 10, 12, 100 times with a branch, because there's obviously a lot of turnover in some branches, you get really good at it, but you got good at it because you did it so many times.
Yep. And then even as a technician, you can see it because if you are that go-to technician, or you are that audit tech, you get to train people because you do have that standard.
Right.
And if you're constantly seeing that guy or a different guy in your truck training them, you tend to realize you find who is going to make it and who's not. And normally in this industry, I found that if you can get by, like if you follow a technician, a good technician, and you train with a good technician, usually in the first 48 hours, the first 2 days of services, that person either stays or doesn't come back.
Right. And that's good. Because now you know quickly. The problem that a lot of the guys are having, especially the solo operators, is, man, I got to go now through this whole process again of finding someone. And it's almost like I'd rather deal with a bad guy than go through the process again.
Right.
And go through that pain again. I said, I'd rather go through the pain again. I've learned that, yeah. And pretty much in 40 hours, I know if he's going to make it at all. And a lot of the times I ignored it because I went through the process and I said, man, I got to go through this again. Let's see if it turns out. It never turns out. And my gut is usually has not been wrong when I observe him working and know that he's not going to follow protocol, that he's not going to follow label directions, that he's not going to. He's going to cut corners wherever he can, because that's his nature right now, at least, in his age group. So yeah, absolutely, man. So now you started up. What kind of customer do you handle, like on a general basis?
I focus on everything. I cover everything. Okay. One of my first customers, I picked up like 7 hotels. I do hotel services, preventative bed bug services, preventative general pest services, and then anything else they need. One of the things with being a commercial business, a pest control business that focuses on commercial, or that has that commercial drive, is you are used to accounts. Myself, I'm used to accounts that have 1, weird hours, and 2, availability, which is actually why I picked up one of my biggest accounts. I do an entire hospital system.
Wow.
It was one of my first accounts, actually. I picked it up because the current company they had didn't pick up the phone on New Year's Eve at 9:00 at night. I picked up the phone. They said, hey, we have a bed bug issue in an emergency room. And with a hospital, emergency rooms you only have so many of them. And with bed bugs, it's already downtime. So how fast can somebody get out there, treat it, and get it back in function to clear it? And I picked up the phone at 9:00 at night. So my first service of January 2020, January 1st, was at midnight in an ER room treating for bed bugs. I spent my New Year's doing that. And from that, I picked up the entire account.
So I want you to, because you just said something, you had to clear it.
Yes.
And this isn't like, well, we're going to come back in 14 days like most bed bug service, or come back in a week. This is, we got to clear it.
Yes.
And get it open. How do you determine, and I think this is great training right now, that you've actually cleared that room of bed bugs and you're not going to have anybody bitten?
So basically with emergency rooms, and hospitals in general, the use of your traditional, tempered Phantom Crossfire, kind of difficult to use because they need those rooms back as soon as possible. So we go in with Sterifab. Sterifab is just an alcohol-based kill all everything contact kill.
Got it.
And you go through that ER room with a fine-tooth comb. The bed, the frame, the hospital bed, the actual bed, the hospital frame, you go through it with a fine-tooth comb. If there's an egg, you have to find it. If there is a bed bug, you have to find it. Because in 2 hours, when that Sterifab's dry, they're going to come in there, they're going to clean it with their hospital cleaners, and then they're going to put somebody in it. And if those nurses, and it's one of the running jokes in the industry that I found, you give a nurse MRSA, staph, Ebola, coronavirus, and they're warriors, but you put a bed bug in front of them, and they're quitting. So you have to make sure that those rooms don't have bed bugs. And in the time that I've done this, thankfully, I have had one hospital room have bed bugs after I treat it, and I had to go back again 3 hours later.
Wow.
So
it can technically be done, but you're gonna again put in those hours.
Yeah, again, a hospital room treatment, an ER treatment.
Yeah,
it's a bunk room. There's one little bed. There's one
right.
little chair. There's not a lot of places for things to hide.
Yeah, we don't have the clustering of everything everybody collects over 20 years.
Right, and even like a hotel room has 150 times more cracks and crevices.
Right. And are you doing any type of steaming, vacuuming, or anything at all? Or just
nope.
Going through it with Sterifab. Just
Sterifab. Most of the time with a bed bug problem in an ER room, because a person can only have so many bed bugs on their person.
Right.
It's usually one or two.
Got it. You got to find them.
Yeah, you got to find them, and it's not an infestation situation.
Got it.
I have had issues where some people have went into an ER that absolutely have an infestation on their person.
Right.
It is not a pretty sight.
Right.
But you work with your charge nurses, you work with the directors and the environmental services directors. You work with them, you build a relationship with them, and they know that when they call you, you are going to be there.
Right.
The contracts that we usually write up for our hospitals, we give 2 hour on site, 24/7, 365.
Yeah. Wow.
With that, me being the only person in the company right now, I don't drink, I don't do anything like that, and I don't go further than 2 hours away from my account.
Right. So pretty much until you can't really take a vacation or do anything until you actually hire, manage, and create an infrastructure where that's allowable for you.
Correct. If you want those kind of accounts, you have to be willing to do that. You have to find people that are willing to do that.
Yeah.
If you have a technician that is on call for that weekend or for that night or for that week,
right,
and they don't answer the phone, the next best guy has to go do it.
Right.
Because if you don't show up in that 2 hour window or, within 3 hours, they are going to call somebody else. And somebody else is going to answer that phone.
Right.
And as soon as that happens, it's no longer your account.
Right.
And it's not an I'm sorry situation. It's they have a multi-billion-dollar business to run.
Right.
And people to save and take care of.
Right.
They'll find somebody that can meet their needs.
Yeah, no, that's the reality of it. And a lot of guys, that's one of the reasons why I don't do a lot of commercial, because when I used to do even the restaurant business, it's an overnight, really early morning type of business. You got to be willing to work overnight and work overnight all the time. So when I was in a restaurant till 1 to 2 in the morning, and I had to be back up at 6 or 7 on 4 hours of sleep to go right around town, it's not very conducive to
right. And margins on restaurants are usually a lot lower.
They are terrible. Down here, people were like, we're going in and we're saying, we're minimum of $325, $350 for an initial with a minor infestation. And, we're $100 a month. And they're like, oh my God, my last guy was $35. And I'm like, well, that's why you have a roach infestation.
Right. And what happens is you build that reputation.
Right.
It does. That one takes time to build. Yep. Where if you have roaches, if you have a problem and you need it gone,
right,
you are the guy that is called. It's going to cost money,
right,
but you are the guy that gets called.
Yep.
Versus, Steve in a truck that is going to do it for $35, but you better not have any issues because he's not going to be able to get rid of them.
Yeah. And that's what, most people in small mom and pop restaurants got used to. And unfortunately, that's the industry. That's why I got out of it. And I said, we just focus on the residential, and why I'm focusing more and more on just residential clients versus commercial clients. Give me one quick second. I got another tech calling. I'll be right back.
You're fine. I'm going to run to the restroom anyway.
Thank you. Yes. Okay. It won't what? Okay. They put the card on file? Okay. All right. Don't worry. It could be the data in that area. It's just not letting you. Yeah, I might be able to, if she put it on file, it wasn't on file before. If you put it on file, save it and see if I might be able to. If not, I'll just email them and they can pay it, or I can charge it here once it. The what? All right, so let's leave it there, and I'll try to charge it when you're gone. It could be data that you're just not where you're at. It's not letting you do it. It could be the app. So we'll deal with that. No problem. All right. When you get over to, give me a ring when you get over to, when you get Claudia, that's going to be later in the afternoon, but give me a call when you get there. I'll walk you through that again. All right. Thanks, bro. Bye.
I've returned. Sorry about that.
Yeah. Data issues. We can't charge a card on the road because it's not letting it go through. So what do I do?
Well, that's not good.
Yeah. So I just said, just put it on file and I'll try to charge it when you get back. So these are the things that, the app isn't working, what do I do now? It's crazy, man. But, so about your business and so you're focusing on those large commercial accounts. You're not really focused on just residential bi-monthly GHP. That's not your major focus?
Not necessarily. We're okay. I'm a little bit. I'm about 60-40 commercial to residential.
Got it. Okay.
The thing is the name RobbinHood Pest Solutions, and then if you've seen from the website, it's for the people, for the business, for the community. I do charity services. I do a couple charities. I actually work with Sleep in Heavenly Peace in Lorain, which is near Cleveland.
Okay, I know where Lorain is. Yeah.
Sleep in Heavenly Peace. They work with needy families,
right,
to make sure that their kids have a bed to sleep in, and they provide free beds, free bed frames to kids throughout the area. And they do it every month. It's phenomenal. And I do their warehouse free of charge. I actually have to do it tomorrow. And it's every service, bed bug services, all of it. It's free.
Got it.
With that, with those things, I like to give back to people. So and this will stay forever. If you're an employee of one of the businesses that I service, and it's the biggest hospitals, the mom and pop restaurants, all employees, their houses are 50% off.
Nice.
I do them basically at cost. If you're an employee of whatever business I service. The whole name, RobbinHood, the whole, the story, robbing from the rich, giving to the poor. It was born more so. I worked for the Orkins, the Terminixes, some bigger regional companies. And you walk into a house that has bed bugs, and you have a single mother with 3 kids. It's a 2-bedroom apartment or 3-bedroom apartment, or even a standalone house. At those bigger companies, it's $2,000 for a bed bug treatment,
right?
Regardless of how bad it is,
right?
I make those affordable. I make those as affordable as humanly possible for those people.
Got it.
And that's what I'll always do. It's one of those things where
Got it.
You're a single mother of 3. I don't care why you're a single mother of 3.
Right.
But $2,000 is usually out of the price range of a single mother of 3.
Right.
So we go in and we get rid of bed bugs.
Right.
Period.
Right. I noticed that you're using the Apprehend. How's that been working for you as far as a product?
So far, it's phenomenal.
Right.
Absolutely phenomenal. I did a giveaway for a veterans community nonprofit that we do.
Mm-hmm.
I do every time they do a show, I do a giveaway of a year's worth of pest control service or a free bed bug service. A nurse won it and gave it to one of her patients. And it was arguably one of the worst bed bug infestations I've ever seen. Went in with Crossfire, went in with Apprehend, and in three total services, they hadn't seen a bed bug since.
Got it.
And it was over the course of about a month and a half.
How often are you going back on these bed bug services to reapply or reinspect?
Most of my bed bug services are one treatment.
Got it.
Because I bring that I bring that audited service level of expectation into every home and every business that I do.
Right.
So my tolerance for live bugs are 0. And when I get a call back when they're still seeing bugs, it's kind of a personal attack to me.
Right.
And I want to instill that on anybody that I hire. I'm in that process now. So we'll see.
Yeah. What is just on the technical part when you're doing a bed bug service with the Crossfire and the Apprehend, like to do, the average bedroom, how long is that taking from a tactical?
For an example, I did a 2-bedroom living room on Sunday, and I did that. It's a queen bed and a twin bed,
mm-hmm.
No couch, 2 dressers, nothing else in the whole house, and 2 cribs. Sorry. And that service took me an hour and 15 minutes.
Got it. Okay.
Granted, the infestation was not bad. The couch that was infested was thrown out before I got there. I did get to inspect it, but it was thrown out and there was almost nothing in that apartment.
Right.
But I don't care if it's crazy infested or you find one bug.
Right.
It's getting the same level.
Got it.
And it's still got Apprehend, it's still got Crossfire. And I don't expect her to ever see a bed bug in that house from that infestation ever again.
Right. Right. No, that's that. I've heard. I don't do it anymore. We don't do bed bugs. Miami is a really peculiar market. Most people don't understand. But we are probably as an entire market, 50% rental.
Yeah, I can see that.
So we're right around there. We're 65% Hispanic, 50% rental. When we start talking about doing bed bug jobs, and we tried to do them for apartments, the problem was the landlords don't want to pay for it, and neither do the tenants.
Right.
And we've got people going in for $65 doing the spray services for 15 minutes, and we just couldn't overcome that. I mean, I've talked to every heat company, every heat franchise, every heat manufacturer. Nobody can sell heaters in Miami.
Right.
It's a really, really tough market to try. And considering we're such a large county,
I would recommend Apprehend.
Yeah, no, we've used it. We've done it. We actually did. We actually used it in I do a free service that we do for a drug rehab center. It's owned by a church, and I've been doing them for years, and they got bed bugs, and we went in and they bunk beds, they had like 30 bunk beds, and we did it, and with just nothing more than vacuum, and we did really just use Apprehend, vacuum, and some Cymexa dust, and then we used I like using the SteriFab too, We did that, and we knocked it out with just that. So we were able to do it. So yeah, I did like the Apprehend. The only problem I'm having with the Apprehend is since it is a
biocide.
The biocide, and I've used that biocide before in ornamental. See, that thing is like not new.
Yeah, it's a normal ornamental. I've never. It's
yeah.
So it finally came for.
Yeah, so we used to use it in ornamental, and we used to use it in you use it a lot extensively in greenhouses. The problem that you have with it is once it's opened and it's exposed to oxygen and all that in the bottle, we have no way of verifying how much real live bacteria we're still going to have in that bottle. So we have to put it in the truck, take it out, bring it back home, keep it in air conditioned place, take it back out, use it, bring it back home if you don't use the entire bottle. So I have no way of determining if it's still active or not, depending on how much time it's actually been in the field and back.
You might want to get a hold of Carrie Sprout. She's one of the sales developers for that.
Yep. Okay.
I think they've done studies on it.
Okay, I got to look at it because I haven't done it lately. That's been one of my questions is because I know when we do ornamentals, it's like, look, you basically got to use it up. If you keep storing it, and even our supplier keeps it inside the supplier that we buy.
Yeah, I keep mine in my fridge at home.
Yeah, and well, they keep it, and they have this massive warehouse where they use the ornamental one, and the ornamental one is actually in the bathroom of the warehouse because it has air conditioning in there and it's cool. And that's where they actually keep all that product for their nurseries because they supply thousands of nurseries here in Miami and farms and things like that. And so that's one of the things has been, man, once you basically open it, and then I got no way of verifying. It's not like the active ingredient, you don't know it. You got to, is there live bacteria in there that you can activate? Still, you don't know that. And that's always been the back of my mind with the Apprehend is if I do a bed bug treatment, and it's already been a couple of months since I opened that bottle. And I
think that's why it's such a strong oil concentrate.
Yeah.
Because that protects it from the air.
Yeah. Yeah. The oxidation.
But again, I don't know.
I'm going to give them a call and because I originally had their developer, the one that actually developed it, come on the podcast. She's been on it talking about it. I'm super fascinated by the product because I said, man, finally, I hope that there are more biological products because I know that you can use that same active ingredient to control German roaches.
I was wondering about that myself, and I think that it would be very niche for homes. Yeah, and I don't think it would be very effective in like a commercial restaurant setting. Yeah, I've been looking at doing some testing, but it isn't labeled for it, so I can't legally test it. I don't have a testing, you can get where like universities, they can get a testing, certificate to do the test. We can't do that, so we can't play around with it. But I know that they've done testing already on German roach, and it does affect German roach. It's just a matter of, so I've been looking at, that yeah. So I was actually one of my questions I was going to ask you about bed bugs and what you guys do since you are a green company. How do you feel about like Ecovia products?
I don't like using any type of essential oil. And I think I've done this before. People are like, you can't do eco-friendly because they don't have any residual. I don't do any essential oils inside homes, period. Okay. And the reason for it is that can trigger an asthma or allergy.
Fair enough.
And that's one of the reasons I don't take the chance. They have very strong odors. You can do it with, I've done it with EcoRator, which is
I'm familiar with it.
And it actually does work for it. But we use it in combination with the Sterifab, and we used it in combination with the steam and the vacuum. And we've actually done bed bug jobs with it. That was our process. I used the Rutgers method, the old traditional crack and crevice everything. So we took everything apart, crack and crevice it, steam, vacuum, zero chem, just the EcoRator and the Sterifab. And we were able to do it and get in control in one shot, and then follow it up with an inspection in 2 weeks, put monitors down.
See, even in residential settings, if you are thorough enough, you don't need chemical even for bed bugs.
Yeah.
I mean, EcoRato is technically a chemical, but it's arguable. It's arguable.
Well, it's really cedar oil and sodium lauryl sulfate.
Yep.
And it dehydrates but it'll volatilize, and then you have the dehydration.
Right.
You got the other one with soybean oil that is pretty effective also. Simi Shield.
I'm not familiar with that one.
Yeah, that one, Simi Shield, has been proven. It is expensive. It is up there in price. I mean, really up there. But you can do it. We've done it. It's just that we can't get compensated for it, and that's been our challenge. So whenever I get a call from somebody that, like a friend of mine or somebody that says, "Hey, like they got infested in their rehab center," because they get people right off the street, we go in and do it, and we'll do those special cases. But as a business model, I haven't been able to do it where we can justify the cost of spending 4 hours, 6 hours in a home, doing the entire home, and not charge the $2,000 for that kind of labor for 2 guys.
Right.
Because it takes 2 people to really do it right. If they're moving all that furniture and everything they have to move, we usually take 2 people. So we've done it successfully a dozen times.
Right.
We tested it, and we never did. One of them we have to do a follow up. The other one was pretty extensive. We had to do a follow up, but for the most of the time, 1-2 shots, it's done, and we don't have to use. And then we just leave the monitors in place for their peace of mind over the next year, and say, keep the monitors on the beds, and if you see them, then you got to. But there, we also got the big. The big challenge for us is we got a big, sub-rental market where people are renting out homes, apartments, their bedrooms to Airbnb.
Right. And see, that would be where I would suggest going into the apprehend side.
Yeah.
And offering a preventative.
Yeah. And that's the problem, getting people to pay for that preventative monthly or every 3 months, because they last 3 months. That's been our challenge. Is I've tried to slice it 6 weeks from Sunday.
Right.
And it's like, no, we're not going to do it until we need to make money off the Airbnb. And then we're, so it's,
because I'm the only company that I know of in the Cleveland area.
Right.
That offers preventative services for hotels.
Right. And you're using basically the apprehend.
Actually, no.
Oh, okay.
I've had good luck with, Alpine WSG as preventative.
Okay.
As well as I've used a couple other products that are labeled for bed bugs.
Right.
It's just the main point is to get those products where
the bug is.
No. The idea is that they don't have bed bugs right now.
Right. Got it.
What I'm doing is getting it to where those bed bugs are going to be.
Got it.
So if they do crawl off of somebody and I have a non-repellent behind the headboard, chances are nobody is going to see that bed bug in that room ever.
Right.
Because he's going to crawl over it. He's going to be dead in 12 to 24 hours. Right. And nobody's ever the wiser. Right.
So you're using not really like the Alpine. How long have you figured, even on those porous surfaces, that product is lasting?
I offer a 3-month warranty on my preventative services. Now with those services, it is, what's the word I'm looking for? It is less invasive than a traditional bed bug treatment.
Right.
But during those, if I do find bed bug activity, if I find those fecal dots, or casings, it is automatically treated and charged as a treatment.
Got it.
Before I can warranty it.
Got it.
And I took arguably a very negatively reviewed hotel for those situations.
Right.
And they haven't had issues with that since.
Got it. Yeah, no. I mean, it's that level of expertise that you're bringing to that environment that the average, person doesn't deal with that. And if they do, it's mostly on a residential level where you don't have the constant influx. Because it's one of the things with the bed bug is people don't get it, is that they are the food and they are the host and the transport and the vector of it.
Right.
So it's a people pest, not like German roaches where you got to introduce them through cargo, whatever.
Right.
the person,
It's carried by somebody, and
yeah.
That's with the treatments. That's one of the big things is I get some people that say, well, I'm just not going to come back for a week.
Right.
And I tell them, no, that's the worst thing you could do, because you, for lack of a better term, you're the bait.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
And that's hard. That's a hard conversation. That's a hard conversation to have. Nope. I lost you. Are you there?
No, I'm still here.
Okay, got it. I thought I lost you there. Yeah, so you got to tell. That's what I tell people too. You got to sleep in the bed. Yeah, but what if I get bit? It says you're going to have to sleep in the bed to know if because if you don't, then what if you go to another bed and now that room isn't infested and now you're causing them to go over there.
Right, and I explain to people that, hey, you're the bait for this. Like after I get done with this treatment, and the 4, 6, 8 hours that it takes to dry, depending on how severe the infestation is. You need to be on that bed.
Right.
Like you need to sleep in that. I know it's horrible and terrible and just not good, but we need those to walk over that product as soon as possible.
Yeah.
Because every day that efficiency drops just a little bit.
Right. No, that's been, that's the hardest conversation I think to have, because they're already psychologically traumatized by what's been happening. And by the time they usually call us, I mean, you'll call you and anybody, they've dealt with this for a while, and especially in the lower economic scale, where you got renters in inner city neighborhoods. They've been bid for months, and they're not sleeping, and they're at their wits' end. It's very psychologically traumatizing, and it's to see your children getting bit. That's just the most heartbreaking thing in the world to see and experience, when the little kid is full of welts. And
that was one of the whole points of the company. That's why I do charge a lot less for bed bugs than a lot of companies will.
Right.
Am I the cheapest company out there? I'm pretty darn close.
Right, to doing that, because you're doing it at cost. I mean, the reality is,
for the most part.
It's an offering that you're doing for everybody. It's a donation.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I think hopefully will differentiate me from everybody else, is I'm offering it at that lower price.
Right.
But you're getting somebody that actually cares if they're gone.
Yeah. I know a lot of guys right now that are going to listen to this are going to pull their hair out. Say, you're destroying the market. Okay, look, you're not going to cover everybody. You're not going to do everybody in the world.
If anything, I'm destroying the do-it-yourself market.
Yeah.
Because if the person that is doing it this way was never going to pay $2,000 to get rid of bed bugs.
They would never. They're going to fill that mattress with the over-the-counter sprays and basically have their kid sleeping laying on bug spray, which is worse. And that's what most people don't get, is the fact that when it comes to bed bugs, they're not going to do it. There's a lot of good groups now who are giving good advice. There's a lot of groups that are just giving disastrous advice, allowing anyone with no knowledge of bed bug entomology or biology to give advice. And you got people creating mustard gas in their kitchen to control bed bugs. I mean,
and then you have you have a lot of companies pushing, and nothing against green products, but you have some companies pushing green products that are, $50 a bottle, $60 a bottle, and it's ready to use spray. And they don't really give you any follow-up with that. They say, oh, just spray it and you'll get rid of bed bugs.
No, you won't. No, you won't. And that's one of the things that, even us, like with green products, like I said, we have to use the steam and heat and vacuum and all that. And that's our green method. And then we still got to use, we don't use the synthetics, but we're using a dust. We're still using a crack and crevice, and then we're still having to follow up. We're still going to have to do 2 services most of the time. But it's for the client that says, I don't want the chemical. And that's the only option I have for you if you don't want any of the chemical, and we can still do it. But you're willing to pay the $2,000-$3,000 for that entire home because you can afford it. When you can't afford it is where my heartbreak has been for people that, and the landlord doesn't want to do it. And then we don't know in the apartment unit if who else is infested in that unit.
Right.
and when is it going to come back?
Yeah, absolutely. It's difficult. It is.
Yeah, that's been our challenge. That's been, the issue that I want to do it. I want to help people. But with the whole demographic makeup of our city, which is so heavily congested, so much rental. If we've got into an apartment building with 8 units, and every 8 units were totally 100% infested with roaches. That's how bad it is, because they've had people in there spraying the baseboards coming in for $35. And now they're going to be spending $2,000 to get started. And
yep, I was just in one yesterday, actually, doing a walkthrough, and I got asked, what is it going to cost to get everything livable?
Yeah, and
I don't really know how to answer that.
Yeah,
like it's a hard thing to answer.
Yeah,
it's like you have so many units, and from what I've seen, every unit has bed bugs, and every unit has roaches, and every unit has mice.
Yeah.
Like, I understand that you guys want to get that under control, but I don't know if you're ready for the cost.
Yeah, they're not.
Like, and the cost of chemical alone.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is, I mean,
we donated it. We donated it 2 years ago. The cost of just the labor cost of the employee and the chemicals.
I saw that video, actually. And
all right, that was $50,000 in a year and a half, and we donated everything.
Right. It's just weird. I don't know what else to say.
Yeah, and then they're like, HUD is going, we don't have a roach problem. I said, dude, 100, you got 100 units, 88 are 100% infested. With some of those units took us 6 services to clean out.
Right. I don't.
And that was, when you're doing back 6 times in 6 weeks. That's how bad it is. I mean, I must have vacuumed an entire bag for our backpack vacuum out of 1 unit. Right. That's how bad it is.
The thing is once it's under control, it is profitable.
Yes. The IPM model is, after you've got everything under control, comparably, we can maintain it.
Right. Like, I have some large apartment complexes. I mean, I have one that's, 12, 15 buildings with, 20 units in a building. I don't take a B&G.
Yeah.
None. Zero. Yeah. The only time that anything is sprayed in a unit is when it's a brand new, like, cleaned, nobody lives there apartment.
Right.
And that's just whoever's moving in there. If they do have roaches, or if they are bringing something in, chances of an infestation are a little less, because it has to crawl up a wall or crawl up a cabinet, and there's some residual there. Or if it is insanely infested when I take it over.
Right.
Because after that, infestations don't happen. Like, it doesn't get bad to that point anymore, because there's always bait in those units. There's always monitors in those units. And I don't need to spray. I don't spend a dime on spraying for a regular service.
Yeah, we don't either. We don't. And we do serious. I mean, people don't get how bad Miami is. Like, oh, people come down here to vacation and they think it's beautiful and it's subtropical and there's so much money down here. The average household income down here is still $35,000 a year.
Yeah. Again, looking back at the company that I'm running right now, I literally started this company with a 5-pack of roach bait and a bottle of Crossfire. Like, that was what I started with. That was what I bought.
Yeah.
And
no, I get it. No, I used to love going down to Cleveland when I was in Columbus. I used to, because it was so different than Columbus. Columbus is a lot more modern. But I used to go down, to the Riverwalk and go down there in the restaurants and because that reminded me of Miami. That was the closest thing to go to that Riverwalk be on that side of Lake Erie and walk into the restaurant. The closest you're going to be to South Beach, I guess, living up there.
Still a pretty far shot.
Yeah. So, but that was it. That was as close as we're gonna get. And then, of course, Lorraine. I mean, if most people know about Lorraine, I think it's got the largest population of Puerto Ricans outside.
That's where I live currently.
Okay, so outside of New York and Puerto Rico, I think it's the largest population of Puerto Ricans anywhere in the Northeast.
Oh, wow.
In Lorraine. So it's I used to go down there because you could get the Latin food, and also that you couldn't get a lot of Latin food in Miami. You could get, Tex-Mex kind of food,
right.
but not real like Caribbean, Cuban food. So my mother would literally send me boxes of stuff from here. Like the first time I ever saw somebody a cassava, yucca, they're like, "What the heck is that?" I said, "It's yucca." Yucca? What the heck is yucca? I said, "No, man,
it's one of my favorite things."
Oh man, a root vegetable, and it's like so, and then plantains. People never seen a plantain in their life. We're talking 20 years ago, 25 years ago.
Right.
Nobody had seen a plantain in their life. It's a banana. It says no, it's a plantain. You got to cook it. You can't eat it raw. And people had no idea what a fried plantain was until I actually let it ripen, and then I fried it for them. And they're like, "Oh my God, where has this been all my life?"
Right. They're great.
Yeah.
I've been to Colombia a couple times.
Oh, okay. Yeah, there you go.
So I love it, man. I love it.
Yeah. So if people like Hispanic food and stuff, now it's more available. Now is, Latin food is, you've got Cuban restaurants in Tennessee, which never existed. So there's, it's gotten, the flavor has gotten around. So it's pretty cool up there though. I used to love the difference. I used to love going to Cincinnati and the brick buildings and that industrial environment. Cause you don't see that in Miami. It doesn't exist. So to me, that was always pretty cool. So hey, let me ask you this. So if somebody wants to hire you, get a hold of you, looking for you, how do they get a hold of you, man?
Absolutely. They can book on our website, RobbinHoodPestSolutions.com or RobbinHoodPest.com.
Yep.
They can call me or text me at 440-794-1631 or 440-723-6500.
Cool, man. So and I'll leave you with the last word. If you want someone to know something that we haven't discussed, what is it that you would want them to know?
Oof, I don't know.
That's a loaded one, huh?
That is. That's not fair. Not fair.
Not fair. Okay.
Basically, I think it focuses more on homeowners and business owners.
Yeah.
Bed bugs and roaches.
Yeah.
Hire a professional.
Yeah.
Whether it's me or someone else, hire a professional, because you will end up spending so much time and so much money on over-the-counter products or even professional products that you can buy on Amazon, without knowing how to use them and knowing where to look and what to do. It is going to cost you significantly more for roaches and bed bugs than it will paying for a company.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Now in the Florida southern areas, that can be said about some species of ants. We don't get that as much up here, but when it comes to roaches and bed bugs, it is very important that you hire a company to do it.
Yeah, no, absolutely, man. I 100% agree. I talk to people all the time. I see the roach powder, the dust, the gels. They've got that kitchen caulked up, dusted, and sprayed, and they still have roaches, and they've already spent $150 on products.
I've went into hotels where they have roaches and they have bed bugs, and at the time we were using Phantom and Tempered to treat for them for bed bugs.
Right.
But the business owner, even though it is technically illegal, had been treating it themselves with Tempered and Phantom for about 3 years. Tempered and Phantom did not work against bed bugs or roaches in that hotel. And it becomes a nightmare.
Right. Yeah, here in Florida, you can't treat commercial properties on your own.
You can't hear either. But it still gets done.
Yeah. So I know a lot of guys doing it. The restaurants and all that, and they're contaminating the surfaces and all that. And
they're technically, for the most part, not even allowed to spray like Raid to knock out a wasp nest.
Yeah,
and a lot of business owners don't understand that.
Yeah, no, that's a huge problem. But like I said, bro, I've made it my mission to make IPM popular. You know what? One of the things I'm thankful for about this whole COVID thing. Everybody now in America understands the term PPE.
Yeah, that it was a win.
That's a positive, because now we can discuss intelligently PPE with everyone.
Yeah. You talk about IPM as well with that.
Yeah,
I have Truman's Pest Control Operation book right beside me.
It's a great one. That one. And if anybody would pick up Truman's and pick up Malice, that with those two books, there isn't probably 99% of anything you could learn to handle. With just those two guys, that's it. I mean, as far as the biology,
right? You know, biology side, yes.
Yeah, on the biology, you still have the practical. You still have to go out there and learn it and put the notches under your belt.
Well, for that, we have your roach video on your website.
Yeah, and I'm going to be making as many videos as I can. As much we really do need to educate America and the world on what is real pest control. That it isn't coming with a can of spray and spraying or hosing everything down. It's a tool, but you like I tell people, I said, you wouldn't take your car to a mechanic that only used a hammer. It makes no sense. And I think that and my challenge has been, the universities have got it right, and government has gotten it right. The problem is nobody else knows about it. And my thing is, how do I tell people about all the work that the universities have done on IPM, but they haven't learned how to market it, and it hasn't been marketed as something that is a solution to learning how to manage pests versus even IPM South, which I'm fond of, and the IPM Institute, and all of these guys that are doing the work, they're just not doing a great work of marketing it. And I think that's where we need to do. Guys like you and me, who are really fanatical about IPM, what is the best way to solve this problem? Not necessarily the green way, but what is the greenest way? What is the best way that we knock this problem out? Because you don't have weeks or months for a kid to roll around on a mattress. That's where I'm, and I think green, if you take a facilities like an AIB facility, that's about as green as it's going to get.
Yeah. Like the thing is it's, if you're doing things the right way and you're being thorough and you're implementing actual IPM,
right,
you're pretty much green.
Yeah. That's it. That's what most people think it's all about mint oil. I've gotten into arguments. I've gotten kicked out of the cemetery for that reason, because I argued with that fact you were not going to be able to control that problem with a product that was being promoted heavily, and the misinformation and the
there's an entire fleet of audited account technicians that laugh at those kind of conversations. And
I use it, but I've done the research for 9 years on essential oils. We have our blend that we make. All of it are for plants. All of it are for outside. None of it is for indoor. We don't do it. But I've probably have way over in the last 10 years 1 million gallons of applied essential oils, but all to plants, all outside. You can't control ant species that we have here with essential oils.
Right.
You can't do it. So, I try to be fair, equitable, bring the balance, bring the real science, bring the real information with people like you that, actually know what they're doing. And
I do. I'm not going to say I haven't sprayed inside. I have.
Yeah.
I've sprayed all kinds of, but it is never is it the first, is it the first option?
Right.
Unless we're talking, special circumstance treatments like bed bugs or fleas.
Surface spraying, it has to be done.
Yeah. But from a general pest standpoint, it is never the first option.
No, for me, it's been true that it hasn't needed to be. I mean, we solve every residential problem, and I want to be fair and clear. Every residential problem that we have down here in South Florida, which is a lot because we're in a subtropical environment. Right. So we're talking about German roaches, American roaches, Australian roaches, 7 to 8 species of ants, silverfish, stuff that you would normally have 99% of the time. Zero spray service for that. Mostly baits dusts. We don't even do crack and crevice with any synthetic product to solve those problems. We can use a lot of borates to solve those problems and do crack and crevice with borates. And we knock out serious infestation. So the fact that somebody tells me they have to is you don't. You just are not. You won't.
It's just been demonstrated too many times that it's wrong.
Yeah, and the problem is that most people aren't willing to just admit. And it's really, you know what it is? It's a psychological effect, Carl, that I bought a lie or that I bought an error, and I have to admit that I bought it, and you own it. So it's because my boss told me. I went to a conference. They told me, and so what you're saying is those guys are wrong. I'm saying those guys are wrong. They might be wrong now, maybe 10 years ago when they told you it was true, or 20 years ago. But now you have to come to that conclusion that you've embraced a lie, and you have to change what you do now. But you have to say, it's almost like you're saying, "Dang, I was stupid for believing this."
Right. I look at it like you can absolutely, even with the sprays we have today, you can absolutely get control of any problem inside a house with a spray. You can do it.
Right.
With pyrethrins, the imidacloprids and that whatnot. You can get control of anything, any problem there is. But how invasive is it, and how safe is it for the people in that house?
Yeah. And that conversation is the loaded one, safe, because people say, well, the EPA says it's safe.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you follow labels, if you follow the labels, it is safe. However, if I can get the same amount of control in roughly the same time frame, for the most part,
right,
doing it with less chemical,
right,
and like I said, the same time frame with less chemical, why not do it that way?
Right. And the whole concept is that's up in arms is from a lot of the people, selling the chemical, that I'm about radical reduction. I'm not about the eradication of chemicals like some groups are, that they're just become fanatical about getting rid of every chemical. I'm about what you just said. If I can solve it without the amount of chemical, if I can do it with 99.9% less active ingredient, what's wrong with that? And why are people being so protectionist about saying, well, the reality is you still have to spray? Why do you have to spray? This is where I irritate everybody. Why do you have to spray? Well, just because you do. And then they get offensive and mad at me.
Well,
for no reason.
that brings us full circle to our original topic with audited accounts.
Right.
It is, you have to get 0 pest activity.
Right.
For the higher tiered accounts. The threshold is 0 before you have to take action.
Right.
And if you do take action, you have to take action with as direct and targeted treatment as humanly possible.
Right. And I think
you're not using the chemicals. If you take that methodology and use it in a residential house, or you use it in a commercial kitchen, or you use it in a school, you are going to get those same levels with those same standards, as long as you take the time to do it.
Yep. I think we're going to end it there, because you could have not have finished this podcast any better, to make that point that is the exact premise that I started with in my mind when we started the conversation. And that if it's done this way in a hospital, if it's done this way, why can't it be done in the home? And that's what we explain to our customers. This is the level of care that we bring to your home.
Absolutely.
And everybody can do this. This is not exclusive.
If we can keep bugs and mice out of million square foot hospitals that see 1 million people a month in and out of those doors, and there's 5,000 doors to be opened and closed.
Yep.
If you can keep bugs and mice away from those without spraying every inch of it every single month, you can do it in a house.
Yep. Agreed. I thank you so much, Carl, for being on. This has been such a stimulating conversation. I hope that these guys, if they take this to heart, man, we will, this podcast alone, if it ever goes viral and people take this to heart, can literally change the industry and change people's lives in these small companies and these individual techs. It can literally change their life, and it changes the life of the client too.
I hope so, because that's the goal.
It was very good talking to you, my friend.
Yep. I hope you have me back on.
We will. I mean, just come up with new stuff to talk about, and you can. I mean, I'll sit there and listen to you for 2 hours, man.
It goes both ways, sir.
Thank you. I appreciate you so much for doing this and for taking the time and sharing your life and everything that you're doing and for everything you're giving away. But it will come back to you 1,000-fold. I guarantee it.
Yep. Well, I actually have a yellow jacket treatment and a bed bug treatment to go do.
All right, my friend. Have a great one.
Have a good one.
Take care, my friend.
Bye.